2 days after Diwali continues to remain the air quality not just here in Delhi NCR but across several cities in the country. Delhi NCR particularly bad, witnessing a blanket of toxic smoke and of course dangerously polluted air. And this is the most dangerously polluted air of the year so far after, as usual, people defied the firecracker ban. PM 2.5 levels were the highest they've been in the last 3 years. Air quality in Delhi and surrounding areas has slipped into the hazardous category following Diwali celebrations. Those with respiratory problems have been advised to stay indoors.
पहले मतलब इतनी जल्दी थकते नहीं है साइकिल चलाते हुए, पॉल्यूशन की वजह से लंग्स में दिक्कत होती है, मतलब सांस लेने में प्रॉब्लम, फिर लंग्स में दर्द, जलन भी होती है, दर्द भी होने लग जाता है, थोड़ा फॉग वॉग भी दिखती है आसपास और ब्रीदिंग में भी थोड़ी प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं। और जैसे हम तेज चलाते हैं साइकिल तो वही ब्रीदिंग में प्रॉब्लम आती है और सामने का दिखते नहीं ज़्यादा दूर तक।
दिल्ली के पॉल्यूशन का रीजन क्या है आपके हिसाब से?
दो ही रीजन है, एक तो कार और एक दिवाली में जो क्रैकर्स चले वो। अगर गवर्नमेंट ऑड नंबर और इवन नंबर चला दे फिर तो कुछ हो भी सकता है।
अच्छा।
पर अभी लगता नहीं पोल्यूशन कम होगा।
All right, the immediate reason for the devastating spike is, of course, the fireworks. The government department SAFAR had forecast this. The fireworks have made an already bad situation worse as far as Delhi NCR and several other parts of North India are concerned, especially Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. The stubble burning by farmers in Punjab, Haryana and western UP predominantly continues. This, combined with the existing pollution sources like power plants, vehicles and open burning, and of course cooling temperature and low wind speeds have further compounded Delhi's problem. Today's forecast shows that the pollution may start to clear from Sunday evening with winds picking up pace, but the air quality will still remain in the very poor category. And this, like we've been saying, is not just a Diwali problem and it's not just a Delhi problem. Chennai too has experienced a substantial rise in air pollution on Diwali day due to heavy bursting of firecrackers, according to the Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board. So those are pictures from Tamil Nadu, Chennai, posted of course by somebody who's out on a bike ride on Diwali evening. The air quality index was very poor, between 342 and 385. PM10 ranged from 187 to 283 versus the prescribed limit of 100. The PM 2.5 was between 175 to 275. This, of course, versus the permissible limit of 60. So it's not just a Delhi problem. The air quality has plummeted across several cities where the cracker ban has gone up in smoke. I want to go across to my colleague Akshay Dongre. He's joining us live from the national capital, which of course continues to remain the worst hit. Delhi NCR, battling an all too familiar problem, Akshay, but this time we are seeing AQI levels the worst they've been in the last 3 years. Despite a firecracker ban, despite a Supreme Court mandate on green crackers, which are supposed to emit less smoke, one has seen the air quality levels at the hazardous category, over 500 in several parts.
Delhi continues to be one of the most polluted city across the country. In fact, just a day after Diwali, Delhi was one of the most polluted cities. If we look at the top 5 most polluted cities, as far as the other cities are concerned, it was Noida, which also comes in the NCR region. It was the most polluted city, and yes, clearly there is a concoction of the flouting of firecracker ban and this double burning that is happening in the northern states, which resulted in all the top most polluted cities in the last 24 hours to be from UP, Haryana and of course Delhi. So clearly it raises a lot of question marks about the entire notion of green crackers. The question also on how serious were the authorities as far as the implementation of cracker ban is concerned, because you can see behind me right now as well, people are going to their work, but Delhi remains hazy. The situation remains extremely bad. You can see it is very, very hazy. It's a straight road, but you can't see far. So the question is, what exactly has happened as far as the implementation of firecracker ban is concerned? Who exactly is responsible for the flouting of the rules? The police have have been stating that they are taking action, but when it came to the implementation on the ground, it was absolutely zero. So the situation is going to be like this till the time stubble burning will continue. So it is extremely difficult for and unhealthy for the people, not only who are battling with long COVID or lung infections, but also the healthy people who have to stay out and work outside.
Right. Akshay, thanks very much for joining us with that update. Keep your mask on as you report, of course, from the streets of the national capital. Many people who are actually out on the road have been reporting itchy eyes, watery eyes and difficulty in breathing. This is something that doctors have also corroborated. Now, joining us on the broadcast to talk more about the air quality, the air pollution, Bimlendu Jha, noted environmentalist, Dr. Gohar Azad, empaneled physician consultant, and Akriti Bhatia, policy analyst, assistant professor, sociology, Miranda House. She's also a social activist. Thank you all very much for being with us. Dr. Azad, to you first. I think most questions at the moment are about survival. We know the air quality is, more than 500, which is, of course, well above the WHO safe limit. What should people do at this time?
Like post Diwali, I can see in my OPD, many patients of breathing difficulty has increased, like asthma patient, bronchitis. These people, COPD patients have increased and they have severe difficulty in breathing. So, as if now we should maintain all the precautions like we have maintained in the pandemic of corona, like wearing the mask is very important when we go outside. And of course, we should look into this firework on Diwali, because it's a tremendous change in climate, post Diwali, like air quality falling to PM 2.5 is now 533, which is very severe. And along that, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide has increased, which penetrates the respiratory system via inhalation, and which can lead to the COPD and sometimes the lung cancer. So we should take a lot of precautions by going outside.
All right. So a lot of precautions have been advised, and this is something that, all doctors have been talking about. Stay indoors if you are somebody who's susceptible to, pulmonary disorders, and literally lock yourself home. But Bimlendu Jha, the question is, how many people actually have the luxury of locking themselves at home, or air purifiers, or just staying in if they don't feel well? Most people are out there, people are working, people are out on the streets, driving. I mean, this is a story that plays out time and time again, despite Supreme Court orders in place, that only green crackers can be used in moderate air quality. We saw the cracker ban go up in smoke.
Absolutely, Rishika. So it's so unfortunate that, imagine, despite the ban, despite, we're living in COVID times, despite knowing the fact, as, director of AIMS also said yesterday, that COVID, the vulnerability towards COVID increases if you actually have higher levels of air pollution. Despite knowing all of that, and despite having a terrible 1.5 to 2 years in our country, citizens decided that right to firecrackers was more important than right to fresh air or right to life in this sense. So it really pains and it aches to really see how we were in a self-destruction mode last couple of days in Delhi and other parts of Delhi. But at the same time, this is also a failure of governance. Year after year, as you rightly said, we talk about this. There are known sources of pollution. No doubt, firecrackers and stubble burning are episodic sources of pollution. Those need to be addressed. There needs to be a governance mechanism to find out why were the firecrackers allowed, where did they come from, where was the police, and so on and so forth. And similarly, about the stubble burning.
Very briefly, I just want you to explain to our viewers, because, there is a narrative online and many people actually believe that, there's already an air pollution problem and it's caused because of stubble burning. It's caused because of n number of extraneous factors. Why blame firecrackers? Firecrackers is a 1-day celebration or 2-day celebration at the most. So, let people go out and celebrate. let's deal with the other sort of bigger problems, which is stubble burning, fossil fuels, etc. Can you explain to our viewers how firecrackers have made, a bad problem worse?
See, that's what, as in when the situation is already bad, then you don't really, make it further worse. As in when your house is on fire, you don't actually put petrol further.
Yes.
And no doubt, firecrackers are not the only source of pollution. But look at 20 times worse that air quality has become. And right now, imagine since 2016, this has been one of the dirtiest or one of the most polluted Diwalis. It affects children. Ask the doctors; they'll tell you that the hospitals run out of ICU beds. So it's not a question of whataboutery. Of course, what about that and what about the other? Of course, all the issues, be it vehicles, be it public transport, be it, burning of stubble, all of that needs to stop. But in a sane society, we shouldn't even be talking about burning chemicals. And faith is not so paramount that you actually push your children. Imagine every third child in Delhi actually is asthmatic. So is the right to breath of the child more important, or Hindu khatre mein hai is more important?
Well,
Hindustan khatre mein hai is what has become right now.
All right. Akriti Bhatia, you wanted to come in?
Yes, thank you. Actually, this issue of firecrackers, it's unnecessarily being communalized and politicized. And I think that's really something which is very, very worrisome. Also, as everybody else has said, that, COVID has already made our lungs so much more vulnerable. And what we should really think about is people who are homeless. There are about 2 lakh people who do not have roofs, who cannot self-quarantine, who cannot really afford air purifiers or afford appointments with pulmonologists and so on. So I think it's also, of course, there's been a very strong negligence on the part of citizens. But I think why also the government needs to wait for this time of the year, sit back and not already have those kinds of very strong measures.
No, but
for example,
Bhatia, don't you think as a policy analyst, the problem here lies in implementation, because everybody seems to be saying the right things. The Supreme Court has, kept in mind various factors, including the fact that the firecracker industry actually provides jobs, employment to lakhs of people. And if there is supposed to be a blanket ban all over India, there has to be a contingency plan to employ, these lakhs of people who literally be out on the streets. So keeping all of those factors in mind, the court has talked about green crackers. Now, the science behind green crackers is a whole different debate for another day. But the point here is that despite the firecracker ban, despite the Supreme Court clearly stating that green crackers are permitted only in areas with moderate air quality, what we are seeing is a cracker ban go up in smoke, not just in Delhi NCR, but in several other cities. What about implementation?
Absolutely. I think implementation is indeed a very big issue. Even if you look at something like the whole electric vehicles noise that was there, right? Every budget had huge allocations, but we still don't see any kind of an infrastructural leap. What we see instead is the entire Central Vista construction project and all those, again, misplaced priorities. Because it's also vehicular emissions, it's also construction activities that are a major cause in a city like in Delhi. Right. So, and of course, firecracker ban, there is always ways to kind of implement. Many of these factories anyway operate illegally with extremely hazardous conditions where child labor
with some kind of a broad policy that has been put in place. It really does boil down to implementation. And of course, there's been zero implementation as far as Delhi NCR is concerned. You don't need to have even heard the firecrackers on Diwali. Just, the aftermath. 2 days later, the air quality still remains in the hazardous, that deep red color that you see on all the AQI apps on your air purifiers. It really tells the story pretty clearly. Thank you all very much for joining us. We're going to continue to track this story very, very closely. It concerns, of course, every single one of us. Delhi's AQI currently at 533, and this is 2 days after Diwali.